Today, and we've been going through these great verses which were recited by Lord Chaitanya, um, depicting the progression of bhakti. In many ways, this is also, there is a whole, just like you have a GPS, or you have, when you're driving and you see these milestones and then you know you're heading in the right direction. So in the same way, bhakti actually has several different stages, and it's amazing how our acharyas, our teachers, have actually delineated each of the stage with particular symptoms at each stage. So one can actually tell what stage a person is in. So what we'll do is we'll recite the verse and maybe then talk about, right?
Yes.
So today is actually a very, very special verse. It's entering into a deeper place of bhakti.
चेतोदर्पणमार्जनम् भवमहादावाग्निर्वापणम् श्रेयकैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणम् विद्यावधूजीवनम् आनन्दं बुद्धिवर्धनम् प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतस्वादनम् सर्वात्मा स्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्ण संकीर्तनम् नाम नामकारि बहुधा निज सर्वशक्ति तत्रापि नियमित स्मरणेन कालात् एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन्ममापि दुर्दैवमीदृशमिहाजनिनानुरागा ऋणादपि सुनीचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमानेन कीर्तनीया सदा हरि न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरी कवितां वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवताद्भक्तिरहेतुकी त्वयि अयि नन्दतनुज किङ्करम् पतितं मां विस्मे भवाम्बुधो कृपया तव पादपङ्कज स्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तया
नयनं गलदश्रुधारया वदनं गद्गदारुदया गिरा पुलकैर्निचितं वपुकदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति
नयनं गलदश्रुधारया वदनं गदगदरुद्धया गिरा पुलकैर्निचितं वपुकदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति.
My Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? So we are suddenly entering into a much deeper dimension of bhakti, of which we have no experience at this point. And yet, this is our prayojan or our goal. I was just thinking that, and this is actually something we should share, that how the entire body of Vedic knowledge is actually divided in three categories. So the first category is sambandha, which means that before we embark on any spiritual path, we have to have a clear understanding of sambandha or relationship, which means
we want to know who we are. The first step is understanding how we are not this body, we are a spiritual soul. And then also understanding who God is, what is our relationship with God, what this material world is, this material energy is, what are Krishna's spiritual energy. So this Tattva Gyan, this knowledge is called Sambandha, because we are all driven by what we are tied to. So whatever conception of life we have, that's what we will be pulled towards, that will direct us. So Sambandha means having the right conception of life. That leads to the right goals.
And then the next thing that is very important for us to understand for any spiritual path to be successful is the knowledge of Abhideya. Abhideya means that understanding, so all right, if I am this, how do I get there? Just having a theoretical understanding of it is not enough. So we have to have a practical realization, a direct experience of that. And for that, there is a process that is given. And so not all processes are created equal. Based on the particular sambandha understanding, we get a particular process, and that's called abhideya.
So what we are doing right now, the process of chanting, process of discussing about Krishna, reading about Krishna, that is one of the principal components of this abhideya, how to attain this. The prayojana is what we are attaining, aiming for. So that prayojana is the goal. What is the final goal?
So that's the third.
Right, but the avideya is in relation to prayojana.
Right.
So depending on, once we know the prayojana, then we follow the appropriate avideya, which is the process.
So just to backtrack, just also we, so this was the second, and then the third one would be prayojana, which is the goal, which is what you're talking about.
Right.
And that's like you're saying, it's very important to know what is our goal. Otherwise, how do you really practice without knowing what's the goal? And so here we are seeing that in this particular verse, what is being described is actually the prayojana or the goal of bhakti.
Yeah, which is attaining love of God, love for Krishna. That is the that is the goal of the ultimate goal given in the Vedas. There are so many secondary goals given in the Vedas, like going to the heavenly planets, or maybe merging in the effulgence of Krishna's body, which is like personal liberation, attaining a connection with the super soul, which is the goal of Ashtanga Yoga. So different processes in Vedas offer these different goals, so that whatever our desire is, we will be attracted to that goal. But the highest goal that is offered in all the Vedic wisdom texts is this love of God, which is what is described in this Sikshastakam.
Yeah, and here we see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is talking about this condition of the heart where one is overcome by spiritual emotions. So in this world, we're actually all driven by rasa. Rasa means taste, which means that some kind of a mellow, a mellow of relationship, a mellow of friendship, conjugal love, parental love, and so on and so forth. But all those emotions are, because they are existing on this material plane, as a result of that, it is always in a state of flux. And at the end of it, it leaves us with heartbreak and leaves us with a broken heart. Now, it's also described that everything that exists in the material plane actually has its origin in the spiritual dimension. And so otherwise, this is because this whole material realm is considered to be like a reflection or a shadow. So the spiritual realm also has its own emotions. And that is what actually generates this taste or this rasa, this experience of intense pleasure. And so here Lord Chaitanya is praying for that when will that day be mine when I will experience these tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your name.
So this is a hankering that develops in a practitioner, that when they chant Krishna's names, then how do we know that the chanting is working on us? That it really softens our heart. It causes a transformation of our heart that we cannot live without Krishna. That hankering becomes so deep that just like a child cries for the mother, so the heart cries for the mother, because we become so connected with Krishna in this deep mood of dependence and love that even a moment without Krishna feels like I cannot tolerate that. And that's what causes the tears of love. um, and these tears of love, we cannot, some people, yeah, we cannot fake them, that they are.
Yeah, and actually there were two things I just thought of. The one is of course the fact that these can be imitated.
Yeah.
The real transformation of the heart, like you're saying, is this genuine feeling of humility and genuine, transformation of the heart where we're able to let go of all the past conditioning. But I was also remembering this very sweet, remember the sweet pastime that we heard, and how the impersonal yogis, they spend years and years in intense austerity, in silent meditation, and going off into the Himalayas, sitting in a cave, and yet even though they're trying to attain, they don't even get a glimpse of one of the rays that's emanating from the one of the toes of Krishna. And yet, because the cows, the calves, they're so much in love with Krishna, that as soon as they even go moo, then Krishna immediately answers, responds to them saying, what is it? What is up with you? Are you hungry? Are you missing your mother? Do you want extra love? Do you? So this is actually the difference. And this is what we're seeing here, that this is the state. And so another thing to think about is that Krishna very easily grants us liberation. And he grants us mystic powers. He grants us material happiness. These things are so easy. It's a byproduct, a very insignificant byproduct, but he very rarely grants us bhakti.
So as we are practicing bhakti, we should not just get satisfied with life gets peaceful and easy. That's just a simple byproduct of practicing. This is the goal that we can aspire for. That Krishna, my heart is so hard that when I chant your name, nothing happens. My mind is thinking about a million other things. And please, when will I come to that stage where even once my tears come out of my eyes because of this transformation of the heart. And this is
actually, for us, meditation means trying to really hard to put our focus there. And for the topmost yoginis, the gopis, they're saying, we don't want to think of Krishna anymore. But much as we try, we cannot stop thinking of him. So so we have it's a wonderful, it's an ocean. And let's maybe chant now. We have so much we could speak on this, but I think we'll stop here, right?
Yes. So if we can't do this, it doesn't mean that our chanting is not effective or it's a waste of time. This is, we can get to the stage by the sadhana practice that we are doing. This is the path to reach that stage. We're just seeing all the higher floors of the building. We are on the ground floor, but we can see that, oh, this is where I have to go. So we don't have to be discouraged, but we at the same time we can be enthusiastic. And yeah, Krishna is giving this process. Whenever Krishna gives the process, that means we can follow it. Otherwise, there is no point giving the process if nobody can follow it or reach that.
And Rupa Goswami says, right, that there's no price, nothing that you can buy it with. The only price that's required is actually an intense desire, lolyam. So like an intense greed. So if you can develop that when we're chanting, right, really, really saying, I really want to experience this. I want this. And if we do that, then Krishna will reveal it to us. Yeah. So let's try.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you all for joining. We'll now take any reflections, any comments or questions or anything really that you want to talk about. Do you guys find that 17th day on, the mind is a little bit more pacified, and that when we are trying to hear the sound, the mind is actually running maybe less or maybe more?
Hello, can I say something? Hi, good morning.
Yes.
I find that after so many days of following, I attended, I think, almost all the days, I missed a couple of them. I'm very more aware of my thoughts, and I'm able to switch from negativity to positivity effortlessly, more effortlessly than I did before. Before, I used to get sucked in the one thought leading to one more, one thought leading to one more. Now I'm able to bring it back effortlessly, little less, it doesn't require that much work. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes. Yes, this power of sound is such that the mind continues to get more and more pacified. And just like what we heard today, eventually the mind actually starts to relish a taste that is so exquisite that it doesn't get anywhere else.
Yeah, right now we are trying to chant through the tongue, which is the Vaikari chanting. And when the mind starts getting interested in that, that is the next level of chanting. And finally, our intelligence and consciousness starts getting interested in it. So the only remedy is to keep chanting. So right now we may not feel a taste, and we may not feel a taste for a long time, but the only way to acquire the taste is to continue to chant.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Mataji and Prabhuji.
Yes, Kavita.
It felt like let's continue to be like this, being in that state and really felt like heart melting down, and it should continue like this. That's what I felt. I don't know what it implies. I was trying to understand, but it feels very good.
Yeah, that's good fortune. That is extreme good fortune to have this taste. And it is described in the Bhagavatam that if one experiences this taste even for a moment, then one can never forget it. And it'll keep bringing us back to it again and again.
Yeah, Krishna will sometimes give that taste for a moment during our chanting, and they'll take it away so that we can hanker for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji and Prabhuji.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Amrita.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yeah, I just had a question that, you mentioned that Krishna doesn't give bhakti that easily. So, my question is that, this practice that we're doing, is that bhakti, or, are we yet to get there?
That's a very good question. So what we are practicing now is bhakti in practice. This is like bicycle with training wheels. So this is also considered bhakti, but this is like the sadhana bhakti. When we say bhakti, quote unquote bhakti, that means the matured stage of bhakti. So we are all trying to achieve that state of bhakti. But the way to get to that mature stage of bhakti is to practice the sadhana bhakti, which is also considered bhakti, but in the immature stage.
And
So
the example that is often used is like a green mango and a ripe mango. So a green mango is also a mango, but it is not ripened yet. So it's not sweet and juicy yet.
Yeah.
It's kind of sour and a little hard.
Yeah. So this is also part of bhakti.
Well, it is bhakti.
It is bhakti, yeah. And yeah.
I think another example that comes to my mind is, when somebody starts to learn how to play a violin, in the beginning, they're playing the violin, but the sounds that come out, it's like, da, 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 it's like, it's not so musical.
Yeah.
That same, when a master plays that same violin, then it's just filled with so much of beauty, and it's so melodious. So it's the same thing that what we're practicing is bhakti, but in the mature stage, it will just blossom and ripen and become juicier and sweeter.
So there are like 8 stages of bhakti. Bhajana Kriya, this is what we're doing. Then from that we get to the stage of Nishtha, where the material contamination in our heart is almost gone, and the heart is fixed on Krishna. So, and then after that we get a taste for, actually we don't want anything other than Krishna. Like Lord Chaitanya says, na dhanam, na janam, na sundari. I don't want anything. So at that stage, this spontaneous bhakti starts to appear in our consciousness, and then we start doing that. So until that, it is all in practice.
And we are aspiring for that spontaneous bhakti.
Yeah.
When the heart is just like a river naturally flows towards the ocean, our consciousness can just naturally flow towards the Supreme Person. Great question, though, Amrita.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji and Mataji.
Hey,
Yeah, hi. I had a question from today's verse. So, in today's verse, we read that the ultimate goal of bhakti is to have this kind of devotion where we have our eyes filled with tear and our heart is filled with love. but isn't the ultimate goal to attain moksha, the ultimate goal of spirituality?
Such a good question.
Yes, a very good question. So what is moksha? Moksha means liberation from this material world. What does that mean? Basically, we become free from this material world. But that is just the first step. Getting out of this material world is not complete liberation. It is just the first step to liberation. Moksha means just getting free. But then what do you do after get free? So if you don't have that positive engagement, like people who get out of the prison, if they don't have that positive engagement, they end up going back into the prison. They miss the prison so much, right? So similarly, liberation is not sufficient. We want vimukti, which is the complete liberation, which is love of God. So when somebody attains that love of God, then he goes back to the spiritual world, and then he never comes back to this material world. So moksha is the first step, but we are not aspiring for moksha. We are aspiring for going back to the spiritual world, which is vimukti. Yeah.
And also liberation is already included in bhakti.
Yeah.
It's not something that one has to aspire for separately, because it's very, very easy. In fact, in the very initial stages of bhakti, liberation is very readily available. And it is described by the great teachers of bhakti that the goddess of liberation stands with her hands folded in front of the devotee, saying that, please allow me to serve you, or how may I serve you? But the devotee actually rejects, liberation, because one has attained a pleasure or a taste which is so much greater than liberation, that it doesn't matter at that moment. It doesn't matter whether the devotee actually lives in the material world, has to come back for repeated birth and death, because that devotee is already in complete union with the Supreme. So liberation is just a moot point at this point.
Even liberation is available to somebody who's even beginning to practice bhakti. So liberation from this material world is already included. Another example is some child gets lost and he goes into the forest and falls into a ditch, and somehow he comes out of the ditch, but that is not enough. The child wants to go back home and sit on the lap of the mother. That's when the child will be completely happy. Before that, even coming out of the ditch, which is compared to liberation, is not sufficient.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, so nice to see everyone. I guess we'll stop here. And would you like to introduce yourself? There's someone with the name Zoom user. We always like to know.